Firefighters know that every second counts during the golden hour. That is why first responders trust AMKUS for simple, rugged, reliable rescue tools.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of everyone's favorite podcast / radio show / I don't know. There's a whole lot going on here and a lot of it probably needs some counseling. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Larry Conley radio show. And we can just say congratulations to Larry Conley for finally actually winning the lawsuit to keep his name and actually be able to put it on the show because that's a whole nother issue he'll probably talk about later. Anyway, without further ado, here's our host. You know him, you love him, or you at least know him. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Larry Conley.
Boo.
Not boom. When your mama won't applaud you.
I said boo. I didn't say boo.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like boo
because
to me.
we had the whole class.
Yeah.
I was sitting there.
Right.
You know, it'd be off to my upper right-hand corner where she's sitting on the screen. The whole.
Well, I want to start out with a little something that's familiar, and a little song I heard when I was a kid. With "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood." Beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Oh Lord!
And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
No.
Won't you be my neighbor? Yes.
Not with the letters we've gotten from your neighbors.
Right. Would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be
Okay.
my neighbor? So
there it is.
That's
there
me.
It is.
I'm not Mr. Rogers, but I'm not Mr. Robinson either, as Eddie Murphy would put it.
Exactly.
Mr. Conley, ladies and gentlemen, reintroduce myself as the guy with a piece of paper on the wall. But anyway, thank you. Welcome back to another episode. We're doing this during the holiday season. I think this is going to air sometime in January, so we definitely will be into the new year by then and ready to get 25 started. I'm excited. We lost some things in 24. I lost a few things in 24, but that'll be another show. I don't want to bore you with that.
Right.
So anyway, lucky I got the electricity to even do this whole thing now. So, but that's a whole nother story. But then we gained a lot of things in 24 as well. So we're always thankful and blessed and looking forward to a productive, fruitful 2025. And so we'll still be talking about the things that are in the land of the living, so to speak, whether you're talking about people or achievements and continue to elevate. And so during this particular episode, we strategically always pick who our guests are going to be. And with this one, this is no exception, but usually I have one, but this one warranted two because there are two people who I hold dear to the latest thing I've been up to. And you probably heard me allude to in the past 16 months at different times that I'm busy doing homework or whatever the case may be. And that homework was wrapping up this master's degree from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale here in this area. I live in St. Louis, but right across the river is Illinois. And I was thinking to myself after I got the bachelor's, I'm tired. I don't want to do that anymore. No more research, more writing papers, no more, none of that crap, So I see what they say. You can't put out fires with a book. So I believed them after that experience. And it wasn't that it was so hard. It's just like an anchor. It's like everything I do in life had to get back to, well, you got to get back home because you got homework to do. Or if you go out of town or whatever, you have to take your computer. At FDIC, I'm trying to have a good time. And they say, Larry, let me buy you one more drink. I said, wish I could. Got to get back to the hotel. I got work to do. So it's kind of being a party pooper with my friends. And it was just terrible. Mom was like, can you take me to church? Wish I could. Got homework to do, So just always. And now the weird thing about being done with it, So I don't have any more excuses. I might have to start doing some of this responsible stuff. So
I was about to say the other thing that's really weird about it is now you still aren't taking her to church.
yeah. So what's that all about? So, but seriously,
We'll talk later.
but yeah.
Right.
But I hate starting anything and not finishing it. And then I also hate starting something, especially when people I love and respect were the big part of suggesting it and saying, get it done. And then you don't. I would hate to face, Chief Rick Lasky or Dr. Denis Onieal and just say, hey, how's the education thing going? Like,
what had happened?
What had happened was, you don't laugh, but I was washing the car, my homework, the dog ate the homework, and they kicked me out of school. But I'll be back. These two gentlemen are no excuses type of gentlemen. They've achieved a lot in the fire service and a lot in life, and highly respected. But you can't BS a BSer. As my mother would say, you can't run game on the game runner. And I want to be accountable, and not only to myself, but the people I love and respect. And in this case, we're talking about Chief Rick Lasky and Dr. Denis Onieal. So to kind of give you a little short opening of how all of that happened, and I won't bore you too long with it, but I'll give you the clip notes. So the summary. But
if you will.
That's college talk. Yes, college talk,
Yeah.
And here's the weird thing. I've learned some new words through the experience, but I'm still sometimes struggling to interject them into conversations. So I try not to, because I sound stupid when I do it. So I'm not as smooth as Dr. Onieal. He'll be talking. Man, that dude, he knows some words. He'll be on the thesaurus looking stuff up when I'm talking to him sometimes. But anyway, but seriously, I was at FDIC a few years back, and David and I have been teaching there for some years now. And just like you've heard me say before, I've read books and writings and knowing these people from afar. When you get to meet them and know them, personally, it's still a big deal to me. It's still a big deal when you run into them on the road or whatever. So I'm talking to Dr. Onieal at the social. And Dr. Onieal basically asked me, so what college did you go to? And I was like, I had a few years of community college, but I've never finished college. He kind of gave me this look like, you doing all this stuff and there's no education here or whatever. And I kind of felt some kind of way, because I think I've been wrestling with it personally in the first place for myself to finish what I started years ago. And I just never finished it. But, you get comfortable. You start making money, you raise your family, you're comfortable. And then when you start doing our personal leadership class and traveling and doing that, you kind of distance yourself more from the educational standpoint and say, well, why? What's the purpose of even doing it in the first place? And David has a degree. So I'm like, well, I just ride David's.
If he can do it. If he can. That ignorance on, so
because David and I work like this. I have these raw ideas. I pull stuff from a lot of observations from life and the fire service and firehouse life and all of that. And I take these raw ideas and I discuss them with David. And then David knows how to do it go to the cleaners. I take all these wrinkled clothes and wrinkle ideas into David, and David knows how to starch them and fold them and make them look nice, and he gives them back to me and say, here's what we're doing. So I was spoiled with that, but I wasn't taking accountability for myself. So I was just a raw subject matter expert. And if I didn't have the direction of my brother David saying, no, you say this, not that, and say it like this, and you have the dramatic pause when you talk and all that, I was like, I just rambling, in front of people and probably get kicked out the venue. But having that back and forth, feeding in the wrinkles and coming out with a well finished product is how we work. But that still does not hold me to my portion of the accountability so we can be even better together. And of course, David and I are always in competition ever since we were kids. So if he has a bachelor's, I had to get a master's. And if he ever thinks about getting a master's, I'm going to be Dr. Conley. I still might do it. But seriously.
Yeah, he hadn't realized that I'll be smarter than him no matter how much paper.
Right, no matter what. But
so there's not enough degrees to make him understand that.
Oh, gosh.
But so after that conversation with Dr. Onieal, that kind of sparked, I need to get back and start investigating what do I need to do to finish this educational process. And so when I was shopping what educational institutions may work for me, my schedule and things like that, I kind of finalized it down to Columbia Southern University. So I said, well, who's connected to Columbia Southern University? Who's connected to these people? So when I found out who was connected, and one of the great names that were connected to it was Chief Rick Lasky. So sparked by Dr. Onieal, and then had a nice quality, probably hour-long conversation with Lasky, and he shared some things with me on his personal journey of getting his degree or even going back to get it, so to speak. And so that kind of sold me on the fact, okay, here's where I could start it and go ahead and get busy with it. And these are the two gentlemen that I held myself personally accountable to. Now, I'm sure they wasn't every day waking up thinking like, I wonder how Larry's doing with that degree thing, So, but whenever we did talk about it, they were very encouraging, along with a lot of other people along the way on this journey. So that's kind of the backstory of, you say, why you got Chief Lasky? Why you got these two guys in the room? And the backstory, that's the backstory of why. So today's topic, is still, I think, a pressing issue, because even after achieving, getting these degrees, I know that you can have a degree and still be a person of low character and a dummy and all that kind of stuff. So degrees are nice to have, titles, but they don't always, I know a lot of people who got degrees that I wouldn't trust with my Pop-Tarts. So I'm just saying that don't always mean anything. So I'm not trying to make it out to be you've arrived because you have a piece of paper. But when it comes to the competitiveness now in the fire service thing, there has been a paradigm shift. And we kind of talked about this offline, to where when I first came on the job, it's been 32 years plus now, you took successful promotional exams. And when you took those successful promotional exams, those exams, one day you might land and be a fire chief. And that was it. And that's all the paradigm I knew at that point. Things have changed a lot. There are a lot more demands on all these different things, whether you talk EFO, CTO, CFO, degrees, just I know a couple of people that they got the whole alphabet behind their name. They got their name, and you see their profile on social media, and you be like, they just missing X, I think, because they got their alphabet behind their name. And maybe good people, maybe not so good people, and maybe people who are really patting themselves on the back because they got a lot of letters behind their name. But I think what I strive for in my mind's eye is that I spent a lot of raw time in the streets of St. Louis with the St. Louis Fire Department, and learned a lot, did a lot, and that's a invaluable experience. However, I think in my mind, the ultimate firefighter, or if you will, a person who works for the fire service and do what we do, is the person who has that perfect storm and that balance between the education and that helps you understand the why and the philosophy of things, or how to deal with people, or how to manage systems, and then having the respect of working the streets, where people know you're just not built on philosophy, you're also built in practice. So you can have too much you can have too much practice and not understand the why, and you can have too much why and don't have enough practice. And I think that balance is what I personally want to work toward. And these gentlemen can set me straight if they think that that's not necessarily a good paradigm. But so today I want to have that discussion. I want to have that discussion on how important education is, what that change has been in what's the big shift that has happened. Because I know now you want to go go do a job these days, these are questions they're going to ask. They're not going to say, well, how well was your how well did you fight fires in the street? They want to know, what kind of education you have as well. And that's going to make the difference between you and the other person getting that position. So anyway, our special guest today is Chief Rick Lasky. You know him, you love him. He's the number one selling author in the world of what pride and ownership is all about. And then we got Chief Denis Onieal. I don't know what he's doing today. I know it's something great, but but he's probably tired and doing retirement great. But I know that
he's never retired.
Yeah,
Dr. Onieal.
Right. He's just not working a job, but he ain't retired.
He's the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah. But anyway, hey, welcome to the show. Thank you for gracing our show with your presence, and thank you for having a conversation today.
It's an honor to be here.
So, what do you think about some of the stuff I just said? Am I on point, or am I way off, or what do you think?
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, for me, and first of all, this is something I realized earlier in my life. I was always an athlete, football and baseball, and very competitive. I always tell people I've never been picked second in my life. I've always been very competitive. And one of the things I realized early in my fire service career was so many of my mentors, and I'm going to say it not to embarrass him, but he's sitting right here. Dr. Onieal, has all the things that I always looked up to in a mentor and an idol. He's a veteran, a big time veteran in my world. And with what he did in the service, let alone as a fire service leader in chief, and then, as superintendent of National Fire Academy. And, he's like so many of my mentors that I adore, that whenever I saw him at FDIC or any conference, he always had time for you. So I noticed that about the greatest people I've ever been around leadership wise is they've always had time for everyone else. And there's a lot of people out there that won't answer people's emails. They won't answer their text messages. They won't do things. And I remember what was that like? I remember stopping with him in the hallway. I used to watch him like go like 5 feet to get stopped, and 5 feet get stopped, and 5 feet get stopped. But he always had time. I remember that about Dr. Onieal, but like he and a bunch of my other mentors and idols, Chief Jack McCaslin, Chief Tom Freeman, they had the one thing that I really never went after, and that was the higher education in my life. I was always a jock in high school, and when I got out of high school, when I was in high school, I was looking at University of Illinois and some other places. I was going to go play baseball because I want to play in the major leagues. That's all I was worried about, being a professional baseball player. And my senior year, we won the state championship, and we're up in East Lansing, Michigan, and Dave Dombrowski, he's a big GM now. He was with Boston not long ago. He was the farm system administrator for Chicago White Sox. And he come up to me after we won. He goes, "Hey, I want you to come play, baseball for me with the Southsiders." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't have to go to school now, because the only reason I want to go to college would be a baseball player." So I turned down going to play in college for free to go do that. And in between seasons, in between spring trainings, I went to paramedic school, went to the police academy, and all these different things. And I never quite wrapped my arms around. I did so much college, so many different classes here and there. I taught for University of Illinois Fire Services for a long time. And I was always missing that. And I was at a point there in my life where I wasn't able to just tell my family, okay, I'm going to go to school for 4 years. You're not going to see me that much. Plus, it was hard where I was living to accomplish that. SIU has always been a great program. They did the class at the Chicago Fire Academy, but I never wrapped my arms around it until later on in life. The competitiveness came back, and I kept, again, noticing that my mentors, my idols, like Dr. Onieal, they were all hitting on all the cylinders, and I was hitting on like 4 of the 5, 5 of the 6. I never quite hit the whole thing. So that was my issue, Larry. With I made a decision. My wife, so my best friend says, "So you're going to start going to college now? You've been a fire chief for umpteen years. You've got the job." And I went, "This isn't about proving to anybody else anything. This is about proving to myself. It's proving to myself that I can accomplish something even more than what I've been doing." So that's what propelled me into that. I've been on CSU's advisory board since 2013, helping them. We've all worked hard to get the accreditation and reviewing all the curriculum and doing everything. We're just talking another master's degree the other day at one of our meetings. But to be able to accomplish it to fact, and I'll end it with this. I ended up doing a program for them called, You Can, You Will, I Did. And the program was, look at me, look at a dumbass from the South Side of Chicago that pulled this off and actually got Distance Education Graduate of the Year, the DTC Graduate of the Year. I was like, and then it was funny because I used to say earlier in my life, why do I have to take a political? Why do I take a religion class? Why do I have to take this? And I remember Professor Dr. Onieal looking at me. He went, because Rick, it's called, and he did this with his mouth. He goes, it's called an education. He threw that word at me. It's called an education. I went, because I know all the fire stuff about paramedic. He goes, Rick, let's connect all the dots for you. So that's how I started rolling. But it came through a lot of watching people like Dr. Onieal and Chief Jack McCallison and Chief Tom Freeman and my idols. And I'm like, what am I missing, that I need to go after? And that was it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rick, I would not poo-poo your accomplishments. You revolutionized the fire service with your thoughts in a book. And the Pride book is, as Larry says, a bestseller, and it's still a bestseller. And you go all over the country helping men and women fall in love with the job again. So I wouldn't poo-poo what you've managed to accomplish. For all of, the nice things that all of you are saying, you need to understand that I went on the fire department with a high school diploma. And I worked in two of the busiest ladder companies in Jersey City. I was a 15 years in the two busiest ladder companies in Jersey City, as a firefighter, a lieutenant, and a captain. And the thing that motivated me to go to school was not this altruistic quest for knowledge. It was the fact that the firefighters in my station, many of them were Vietnam veterans, and they were all going to school on the GI Bill. And I was driving tractor trailers part-time in New York City. And they were making more money going to college than I was making driving trucks. So there was pretty easy math. And we got the opportunity to swap time off, mutual swaps. You work for one another to go to school. And there was a bunch of us that all went to school. Several of us went off for our master's degree. One of the names you'll know is Harry Carter. He was in the next town over. And so we didn't work mutual swaps, but, we went to school together. And when I finished up the master's degree, my business partner was a captain in New York City, Jim Klein, and he was working on his doctorate at NYU, and it seemed like a fun thing to do. So, that's what I did. But, I want to get back to what Larry said about the firehouse. You can't put out fires with books. So let me give you the steps that I went through. As a firefighter, you can't put out books. You can't put out fires with books, kid. And so lieutenant, look at that guy. He's just studying all the time. And then captain, you can't put out fires with books. And then battalion chief, everything kind of quieted down. Okay. And then when I made deputy chief, they were like, Chief, we were only kidding around. We were just teaching you.
Right.
And then when I made chief of the department, saying, you see, I told him to go to school. You see what happened? So, pride is, so the drill is that I'm nobody special. When I stop and I talk to people in the hallway, I'm sincerely interested in them because people in my life were interested in me. There were professors in school. There were firefighters. We were 3,000 feet across the river from New York City. I mean, I went to high school in New York City. I went to college in New York City. It's that close. So the firefighters there who were going to school and getting promoted, the Vinnie Dunns, the John Normans, the John Sulkas, all those guys, I knew them all, from the job. But you watch them and you see who's doing what, and they influenced me, and it was now my opportunity, and it's still my opportunity to influence others. And I can be fairly direct with people and say, like Larry said, what are you doing about school?
Mm-hmm.
When are you getting in? I can get you in. I can't get you out, but I can get you in. And show them how to do it, or make a phone call and somebody I know that, hey, put a little star next to his name and get him on the admissions list. And, you do it just to help people. And just for the record, I'm on the board of ISTA. I'm on the board of the NFPA. I'm not retired. Doing a lot of leadership workshops.
Yeah. And that's what I hope to do going forward with a lot of stuff that, I've done, because I enjoy being at the table with some of these decisions, understanding the why, understanding where it's going. It's an honor to be sitting in the hotel room, conference room, and looking down, and there's Rick Lasky on the FDIC education board, and, never thought there'd be something I'd be doing. The other thing I got for Dr. Onieal is, what is altruistic? I told you could just throw those words in. I'm like that.
What does that mean?
What's that? What are you talking about?
You'll learn that when you're going for your doctorate.
It's those secret words.
Right.
Because he wasn't paying attention.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Am I on point about the paradigm shift from when you first come on, Doc? Because when I'm listening to you now, Doc, and you were talking how even back then, because I'm guessing 70s and 80s, and and time you're talking about. So back in that time frame, you were still heavy on education is kind of here, and
right.
You're sought as a firefighter, and what you physically do is here. So with that being that strong of a culture, two things: how did you power through that? And then number two, am I on point about that now, where that shift is taking place? And do you think that it was? I think we know the answer, but to walk us through why you think it was necessary for that shift to take place, that education start to get more of a highlight now in things.
I understood early on that in a lot of ways, life's a competition. And when you're going to be going up for our civil service system in Jersey City was probably very similar to yours in St. Louis. It was a civil service exam, and it was based on a bibliography in New Jersey, it was 60 books. So if you knew how to study, you would do fairly well. If you didn't know how to study, which was the situation in a lot of cases, you were going to wind up doing poorly. Okay. So I knew how to organize the material. I knew how to study. I had taken courses in how to write examinations. It's called psychometrics. And so I learned how things are done. Now, it's not cheating. It's just, knowledge. Well, that's fine. And I don't want to diminish the men and women in the fire service who have the high school diploma, who are out there doing that job every day, because we need you. When it becomes the situation where you're responsible for other people, where you're making decisions that affect people's lives, that's where the education comes in. You're a lieutenant, you're a captain. When you're chief of the department, you're not on the fire department anymore. Your new best friends are the mayor and the city council and the other department heads, and you're competing for a piece of the pie that keeps getting smaller every year. So they know how to do their homework. All the heads of those other departments, they know how to do their homework. And you need to be able to do your homework too.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, that's exactly, I had that in my head, Dr. Onieal, just what you said is, as a young firefighter, I was blessed. I got promoted young when I thought I knew everything and I didn't know anything. And I had, going back to the whole, books versus this. I had a lieutenant who was a great guy, 36 years in a job. I'm working a block from Midway Airport. There's 10 to 15 of us on duty, and I'm studying. And he comes up to me. Henry Topol's a great guy, but he comes up to me and he's waving his checkbook, Dr. Onieal, in my face. And he goes, "This is the only book that's important, Lasky, the checkbook. This is the only book that's important is the checkbook. I'm here for finance, not romance." And I'm like, and if I was like, oh, maybe I should pay attention. I'm thinking, but that wasn't very good. He's supposed to be my mentor and my, and I'm going to go back to something that Dr. Onieal said, working in Jersey City, my good friend Butch Cobb and knowing that department so well. And he, for the viewers that are watching your show, Larry, this is a guy that, again, I'm just going to go back to, not to embarrass him, that's standing in the hallway that I'm staring at going, I want to be like him one day, because he came from some of the busiest ladder companies in the country. I don't know if many people know how many fires Jersey City fights. And when he was there, oh my God, how many fires they fought in Jersey City. And I'm like, I'm looking at him going, here's this combat veteran. Here's this fire service combat veteran. And he's got all this, there's a whole other side to him that makes the whole picture. And it just, for me, I tell people all the time, pick your role models in life. Pick who you want to be like. And it's one of the things I talk about in one of my classes is just, I wanted to be like I said, Jack McCass. I wanted to be like Dr. Onieal. I want to be like the people that I can be a pain to. Every time I saw him, he's like, oh, here comes Lasky again. Cause I want to go, Dr. Onieal, how you doing? Just to be able to talk to him. And I'm like, God, this is some regular guy who's been in the trenches, who's been crawling hallways and everything. And then I got promoted to chief, Doctor, like you said. Also, now I'm dealing with labor contracts, and I'm dealing with all kinds of federal organizations and council members who are career business people who are out arguing fire chiefs that just work their ways up, bumble their ways through the ranks, and don't know budgets, don't know how to write or craft a letter. Just before going on the show, a buddy of mine just texted me, say, hey, that grant you wrote for us, we just got it for PPE. I'm like, I ran out to my wife. That doesn't happen when you can't tie words together and sentences together, and you can't put numbers together and all that. And I pride myself on the things we did to rebuild a culture in the way of a fire service in Louisville, Texas, and the buildings we built and the stuff we did was so much of that work that had nothing to do with crawling hallways, as much as that's important. I would have never been anywhere close to being anywhere somewhat successful had I not pursued that part of it. And if you don't pick good role models in your life, people that have the whole picture painted for you, Larry, I said this on your show once before, I'm a big Motown fan. All right. And if you watch the Making of Hitsville, there's one of his tenets Barry Gordy used in the Making of Hitsville that I love it. He says competition breeds champions. And I wrote an article. I love that phrase, competition breeds champions. And I'm like, when you have to have your daughter in 8th grade help you with your college math, that's embarrassing. I did everything in high school to get out of classes instead of learning and taking more classes. My daughter's son, Dr. Onieal, my son, is a combat veteran, Afghanistan, an FMF corpsman attached to his Marines, the combat medic. Please don't get mad at me, sailors, for saying that. I know it's the wrong thing to say. FMF corpsman, but they both work for Lockheed Martin, are very successful, and they've done that whole part of their life. And here I'm asking my daughter to help me with my college math. And that's quite a humbling thing to think you're all that as a fire chief. And my 8th graders go, no, Dad, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, so the role models sometimes are sitting right in front of you. They're in the hallways at the conferences, like I said with Dr. Onieal, my other idols, but sometimes it's people in your own home that can actually, that bar you raise is not for others to follow. The bar you raise is for yourself. Everybody says we're raising the bar for others to follow. The bar you raise is for yourself. What do I have to do to be better, to be better, to be better? Because there's always going to be someone with a shinier fire engine and a newer firehouse or whatever, but you're the only one that can raise it for yourself. And so sometimes the role models are right there in front of you. And like I want to go back to something Dr. Onieal said. He said, I was a firefighter at a busy ladder company. I was a high school graduate, combat veteran. He's all these different things. And look at where he's at. And I said, golly, man, that was me. And if one of my idols, like a Dr. Denis Onieal, the superintendent at the we really talk at the National Fire Academy, can do that, then if I get my butt together, I should be able to start working hard too. Because, he's the kind of role model that says you can do it if you really want it. But you can't just sit back in the firehouse playing video games, sitting in a recliner, and think it's just going to fall into your lap. If it does, you're going to be one of those fire chiefs that you don't want to work for.
Yeah. No, that's powerful stuff. And listen to you right now, Chief, just made me realize that, sometimes, especially the last few months with all this gut punch upheaval that I've had to deal with, some massive change in my lifestyle and things like that. It's been some few dark mornings I got up, but I don't stay dark. I get up and shake it off and realize that
turn on a light.
Yeah, turn on a light. So, but seriously, get up and just say, okay, what's next? Because my mother is a big person of faith, and I got a lot of faith-based friends, and they will tell you that when something's removed, something else is bigger, and even through all of that, it's still power in a way to finish up the practicum and things that I had to do. But what I realized too is that conversation that Dr. Onieal and I had, it wasn't me stalking him and trying to figure out that guy is important. I know he's going places in life or whatever.
I was definitely one of his stalkers.
I don't even know how to change. I just know that I knew he was. I know that, but like I said, to the common theme that we're talking about, he was approachable, and I've said that before anyway. When people will ask, how do you know Rick Lasky? How do you know Dr. Onieal or anybody else that we consider rock stars in the fire service? And I say, one thing I love about this industry is that no matter where you are in it, there's always people that maybe in other industry, they kind of got the kiss the ring mentality. In this ring, in this particular industry, people are always going to make time. My main mentor was Bobby Halton coming. I was cool with Bobby before he was Bobby, when he was still the battalion chief down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when we used to just have those conversations. And then by the time he became fire engineering, Bobby, I never thought he would, but he never lost that. It was just always, I would get these random calls just thinking about you, how you doing? And I was like, ain't you busy being famous? And he was like, that's all BS, buddy. It's just, how you doing? That's what how's Mama doing? And what's David up to? And it was so, but when I started really getting to know the rest of the family in the fire service, and these family members, as Rick Lasky was the chief, Onieal would take that time to say, what's up, and generally what's going on with you. You don't know how much that really impacts and fuses to want to do more. And I would have did anyway, because I think, my mom just built me and my brother that way anyway. But just to have that, like you said, people that you respect, and these rock stars that you respect, that will take that time to connect without saying, talk to my people, or here's my card, call me one day, or something like that, where they talk. Or like you said, you email, answer the call. If they can't get to you right then, they'll circle back to you and have these quality conversations where they're invested in you as well. So I always loved that part, and realized how lucky I was just to even have that chance conversation with you, because I don't know what Rick, every time Rick, if he'll tell one more story about, and do you know so-and-so? No, I heard of her. Well, I was on a plane and had dinner with him and we landed, and do you know so-and-so? No, I don't know. I heard of her. Well, I think you was telling me you was on the plane and you met, I forget who you say you met, and he was like sitting there like a kid. I was like, how does Rick just
Charlie Pride?
Yeah, just get the I'm looking at famous people like, I hope I get Rick just like that. I thought about this famous person. Next thing you know, I'm at IHOP and there he is, and we talked for a long time. And he bought 10 of my books. So it's just kind of so my point. I feel really lucky to have to have this association with you guys, you know. Another thing Dr. Onieal said, which I love, and I can't put it as eloquent as you put it, but I do believe in it because I've said it in my own words to people that I mentor. Because one thing about this is that you get mentored, but to me, it really doesn't mean anything unless you pass it on and you mentor. And I can't. I mean, actually within the past couple of months, some venues I've been in where people have just said, "Hey, come here, let me buy you a drink. Hey, y'all come here, gather around Larry Conley, blah, blah, blah." And it's embarrassing and it's humbling at the same time. But I realize I'm just passing on what was done with me. But when people a lot of times have asked, and St. Louis went through a promotional exam process not too long ago, you're absolutely right. The people who are just kind of decided I'm going to stay here and hopefully I can stumble my way through the promotional process, but not realize that knowing the big picture, even if you don't have the degrees and all that, but at least buying into there is a bigger picture. There's a methodology to doing this. Those are the people that seem to be the more successful, fastest with it. And I remember we were talking about, you know, John Austin, who's a good friend of mine, how John Austin and, you know, people, John Austin, Liddy Carmichael, and different countless other people who really bought into, let me see, he says psychometrics. There's another big word there. Anyway, I probably spelled it wrong, but psychometrics.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, but
I was John Austin's captain.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, go ahead.
And Butchie Cobb, what Rick was talking about, Butchie Cobb was my replacement when I got promoted to lieutenant. Butchie was my replacement in 5 truck.
Wow.
So I mean, it's a small world.
Yeah, it's a small world. But they I know, I remember hearing about how, you know, when John Austin did so well, like, you know, he did so well, he had to send out the search party for who was number 2 on the list, whatever. But seriously, understanding and trusting, like you said, you understood the system, and getting higher education just solidified probably what you already felt in your spirit about promoting that type of thing. Can you kind of drill down more on why that's important, and not just like, okay, let me just get a bunch of Post-it notes, read these books, try to memorize stuff, and then hopefully I'll pass the test? How is that different than really drilling down on a system of understanding the big picture, using the big picture, and then has that helped more than just studying for the exam?
Well, you probably begin by listening to people who have taken the previous exam and understanding, you know, the topics and kind of what they look at. Most of the fire books that were in my generation, the Fire Chief's Handbook, Clark and, you know, Bruno, and they go from chapter 1 is topic I'm going to make something up here to make a point. Chapter 1 is hydraulics. Chapter 2 is driver safety. Chapter 3 is hazardous materials. Chapter 4 is personnel management. Chapter 5 is apparatus. And your mind doesn't work that way. So what I did was I took all the books and I said, okay, I'm going to read everything on personnel. And then I put that aside and I read everything on hazardous materials. And you would get different perspectives as you study. But the study material was organized. And then when you're testing, at least in my day, it was all multiple choice examination. All you had to be able to do was recognize the right answer. You didn't have to come up with it. You just had to recognize it. So there was another technique there in terms of taking tests. And then later on, I started a company with a business partner of mine, and we trained men and women in police and fire throughout the state of New Jersey how to study and how to take civil service exams. And then we ran entrance for the New York City Fire Department. I mean, it was, a lot of experience helping people understand how to study, how to organize your material, and then how to take a test.
Mm.
You can memorize a book. It's a difference. You can memorize a book about bowling. That's not going to make you a good bowler. You got to be able to bowl, right? So it's the same with the test.
Yeah.
If the mark of whether you're going to get promoted or not is an examination, well, you better have the skill set of taking an exam as well as the knowledge.
Yeah.
It's two parts: the knowledge and then the test taking. But then as you get up, as you go a little bit higher, now you're doing interviews. I got asked if I would. It's a long story, and I'm not going to go into it. But I was asked by the Bloomberg administration to become the to be the commissioner for the New York City Fire Department right after 9/11, and that was a whole process. And luckily, a guy named Nick Scopetta got the job. But the reality of it is that you've got to be prepared to go into these situations when they occur. You cannot wait until the opportunity comes up, and then you're going to start preparing. You're going to start preparing 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Well, and Dr. Onieal, you even went further than National Fire Academy. I mean, I was never so proud of when I saw the news release of who the new deputy U.S. Fire Administrator was going to be, and I'm like, that's Dr. Denis Onieal. I know him. Yeah. I've actually talked to him before, and I go, this guy never quits. There's just, it's like one more accomplishment after the other, but everything seems to, in your life, Doc, is built on one thing after another. It wasn't, there was no missing part of the foundation. Everything kind of clicked.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very big pond. It's I'm not working at IBM. There's a finite number of people that you're in touch with. So
well, and there's a lot of people that don't know, Larry, and what Dr. Onieal said is, like, I know my buddy John Salka used to run those schools that in the FDNY you study for years for a once every 5 or 6, 7 year, right, Dr. Onieal, test. You're studying a stack of books when I used to print them this big for 100 questions. And then, it was this constant, and they would get together at these grammar schools at night, and everybody got together and they studied together. They had study groups, and it was just never ending. And then they'd take like a little break when they made the list going, okay, I think I'm going to make it, to start studying for captain. It just never stopped. Mm-hmm. And the guys that stopped were the ones that stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, that makes sense, because there's a good friend of mine named Baron Ross, and he was the guy who worked for St. Louis City for a long time. Matter of fact, when I got transferred to Engine 8, I replaced him. And Baron was kind of, his name was known on the job at the time because he was a very good firefighter. And people say, well, who is this new guy? I say, that's the guy who replaced Baron Ross. So for the first year of me being at the 8s, my name wasn't Larry Conley. It was the guy who replaced Baron Ross. So that's our little inside joke. And I started asking, I said, who are you? My mom named me the guy who replaced Baron Ross. Anyway, Baron is the fire chief of Boeing right now, Boeing Worldwide. He's the fire chief now. And so we communicated not too long ago. But one of Baron's things I remember when I was studying to be captain, it's like, the studying does not start when they drop the hang sheet. And what he was trying to say is that you should always be in that mode. You always got to pump prime. And by the time they drop the hang sheet, it should just be review for you, not start from scratch. And when I saw people started from scratch, I said to myself, well, I don't have to worry about that amount of people. I just got to worry about this amount of people who heard the same message or understand, or maybe just some savants of the fire service. But like I said, that reminded me of his advice is what you just said. You don't wait till it starts. It's a constant thing of always being, what they say, if you always ready,
stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Mm-hmm. That's the same thing, a permanent pump. So that makes
Larry, I had guys come in, they'd say, Chief, when are you going to post the reference list for the promotional exam? I go, it's been up there for 2 years. The only thing, there's 2 editions that are, well, I'm thinking about getting into it. I go, you should have already been You just said something made me think of this. Your book should already be highlighted. All these books should have already been when you actually sit down to start getting ready to take the test. You should have. This should all be like. It should be just like review time. You should be cracking the binder on the book the first time. It should be a process. We did a program called Positional Line of Sight Mentoring in Louisville. Everybody's trained in the next position, whether you want to be or not. It doesn't mean we're going to use you as a battalion chief, but everybody's trained to that next level. Let's actually induce a little bit of reaching for that bar instead of waiting.
Yeah.
And so every firefighter's trained to be a driver, every driver to company officer, and I said, if my goal is fire chief, if I accomplish it, I should be the last outside fire chief to hire here. We should have something working where everybody's studying, but you shouldn't be cracking the binder for the first time when it's test time.
Yeah.
It should have been like you said, like Dr. Onieal said, you should have been, and you mentioned Bruno, Chief, and I'm real quick. I'm with Bobby and Bruno. We're heading from Tulsa to Rogers, Arkansas, a 4-hour drive to go teach a program. And you talk, and the whole way there, Bruno's in the back seat. He kept tapping me on the shoulder. He'd go, Rick, read this article. Rick, watch this video. Rick, and I looked at Bobby and go, did this guy ever take a nap? 46 years in Phoenix, all these years. And he goes, oh, Ricky, he learns something every day. And I'm like, if Alan Brunacini, if Denis Onieal, if these guys in my life feel it's important enough to learn something every day and to never stop learning, who am I to argue with that?
Right. Yeah.
You're
right. And to that point, one of the most intimidating times David and I ever did our program was when Bruno walked in the room, and he walked in there. He stands out because he got the Hawaiian shirt on.
Hawaiian shirt.
I thought he was just coming in just to wish us luck at FDIC. Like, hey, good luck, guys. He sat down with a pen and a paper. I looked at David. And David knows based on what I tell him, but he doesn't know the impact. Like if I was and David's in the film and entertainment industry, so that'd be equivalent to I'm helping David do a class, and Denzel walks in, and David would be like, So Al Brunacini was my Denzel. He walks in and sit down.
We're talking about having impact, and again, I'm not trying to embarrass him, but I think sometimes it's easy for someone like Dr. Denis Onieal to forget after a while just how many lives he's impacted in his time in the National Fire Academy, and how many people he's asked that question about their education that actually pursued it, thinking that I think he's on a mission to make a difference in people's lives, but really not great. And I don't know if he's going to remember this. I asked him I wanted to actually reread one of his keynotes from FDIC, and it's a story. I know we might be running out of time here, Doctor, but I think it was Joey Barrow. It was the whole violin lessons. Joey Barrow story. That till this day, I still remember that story and the impact. It was all about having an impact. And at the end of that, Doctor, you said, who's going to be the next person in this room to change somebody's life? And that story, that part of your keynote, maybe one day I don't know if you have enough time to explain it, that keynote changed me. That's why I'm sitting here remembering it, because it's like, I wanted it so bad. I actually called him, emailed. He goes, "Yeah, I'll send it to you." I'm like, he's sending me this thing.
It's a story about a kid that grows up in the city named Joey Barrow, and he's a young kid, and all his older brothers and sisters are off, and they're married and they're working, and he's home with his mom, no dad in the picture, and his mother worries that he's not going to make anything of himself, and she makes him take violin lessons. And so, of course, all the kids in school's a cruel place, all making fun of him, picking on him. And one day, Joey gets so angry that he takes his violin case and he whacks this kid that's picking on him. And, of course, if you grow up in the city, St. Louis and Jersey City, if you can't fight with your fists, you're in for a long, painful, and miserable childhood, right? So this other guy named Thurston McKinney reaches into the crowd and he pulls him out. He says, "I'm going to teach you how to box." And he takes him down to the gym, and the only money that Joey Barrow had was the money that his mother gave him for violin lessons. So he gives the money to the guy to get a locker, and he goes in the ring with Joey Barrow, with Thurston McKinney, and they start to spar. And Joey hits Thurston McKinney so hard in the chest that he flattens him. Now, Thurston McKinney was no ordinary kid. At that time, Thurston McKinney was the Golden Gloves champion of Detroit, Michigan. So when Thurston started to get up, Joey started to back up because he knew he was in for a beating. And Thurston got to his feet, and Thurston said, "Don't back up. I'm going to teach you how to box. You got a talent." And he did. And by the time he was 22 years old, Joey Barrow was the heavyweight champion of the world.
Wow.
And Joey Barrow, when he started to box and he was starting to get famous, he changed his name because he was afraid his mother was going to see his name in the newspaper and learn that he stopped taking violin lessons and started boxing. And everybody's afraid of mom. I don't care if you're the heavyweight champion of the world. You're still afraid of mom.
Right.
Tell me about it.
The world knew for years before his mother ever did that Joey Barrow changed his name to Joe Louis.
Wow.
That's a true story.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I asked people, nobody knows what happened to Thurston. Okay?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, are you with Thurston? Are you with Thurston in life?
Yeah.
Are you helping people?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be like some emotional. This is what that talk did for me, because Dr. Onieal reached out in the audience and said, "Who's the next Thurston McKay? Who's in this room that's the next Thurston?" Just like you said. And it impacted me. I've never forgotten that story, Dr. Onieal. I've never, ever forgotten that story. And that you talk about making a difference in someone's life, and some of us take that for granted. Some of this is just a glancing blow. Somebody in a hallway at FDIC has a chance to talk to you. Someone, that I remember that talk like it was yesterday. That's why I brought it up, because I mean,
Well,
who's the next?
we all have the opportunity. And if you're the kind of person that shuts people out, that thinks that you're special, you're not. You think you're special? Take a walk into a hospital. Go to 2 places. Go to the nursery. And you pick out the baby there that's going to be a scholar, or the baby that's going to be a criminal.
Wow.
And then take a walk down to the morgue and tell me who's the scholar and who's the murderer.
Right.
And who can speak English, and who's a Catholic and who's a Jew. We're all the same.
Yeah, we all. No,
We the same way.
yeah, and that's and I'm glad. I mean, this continues to confirm what I know about you guys, and countless other great people in the fire service and in life. Period. I mean, my life didn't start with the fire service. It's been enhanced greatly by it. But I got countless people even before I came on the fire service that believed in us, believed in my mother. For the most part, was a single mother raising my brother and my sisters and I in North St. Louis, and we didn't turn out too bad as a result of it. And one of the main reasons I wanted to make sure I had her down at the graduation with us. We took a lot of pictures, and one of my favorite pictures is us there. The other pictures is my son, who one of my sons that was able to make it, and he's going to start law school in the fall. But when he showed up, he was like, "Dad, you don't have to do this, but you consider to set the bar, and I appreciate you for doing something you don't have to do." Because it's easy to push him, but boy, go get your degree and do whatever you got to do. But it's another thing to be still actively doing it. So those were 2 of my favorite moments of the whole experience. But nonetheless, from a couple of brothers from North St. Louis, I don't think we've done too bad, and it goes to show, no matter what your background, where you work, where you come from. You're talking about Chicago, you're talking about Jersey, you're talking about St. Louis, you're talking about some rough places in America that we done learned some things, learned a few things. When David at the rap, we started at the bottom, now we're on the top. But anyway, but seriously, to be able to keep that. To keep that humbleness is the thing that I admire for not just people in general who do it in whatever industry, but just definitely in the fire service, where egos are a pretty big deal, or if you're not mature enough to recognize, you can be full of yourself real quick. And so I'm proud to be mentored and being a mentor and continue to work in that regard. As we begin to wrap things up, because I know we got Dr. Onieal has to get out of here soon, but just wanted to really say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Some of the stories Rick Lasky is talking about, I'm currently experiencing right now with the input of Chief Lasky and Dr. Chief Onieal. You got a lot of titles, and the titles don't even touch the genuineness of who they are. And I've been saying this a lot lately because I've been really, like, God has really been revealing to me lately false prophets in my life and people. I've been Xing them out, and because I've had so many genuine relationships. And when I say genuine and close, they're two different things. Because, like I said, I've never been to Rick Lasky's house. I've never been to Dr. Onieal's house. And I don't want to try to paint this picture like we're super close and all that. But more than close, we're genuine. Because I've had some close people that weren't genuine. But I would take genuine over close every day of the week. And so I thank you guys for being genuine. And Bobby and I used to talk about this kind of off, just he and I talking, just the two different worlds we come from and two different philosophies and a lot of things, two different social and religious constructs and political constructs. And we were able to always meet in that center of excellence and genuineness, that none of that really mattered. We had our heated discussions about some things sometimes, but he always ended with "love your brother," and that was more genuine than people who always agree with me sometimes. And so that was one of the most unique relationships I've ever had. I continue to have it with people like you two guys, and just it could be kind of overwhelming to think about sometime when I look at the accomplishment and what kept me up at 3 a.m. writing these boring papers and drinking coffee and getting up 2 hours later to go to work and all that, and to be here now and do it with look at the transcript, the unofficial transcript. That's 4.0, guys, all 4.0. Not bad from some public school kids from North St. Louis,
There you go.
So I only, like I said, okay, well, I think I'll just make my way through this master's. Like when I looked at 4.0, who is that guy? That must be Dr. Onieal. Oh, says Larry Conley. So, you got to march that
4.0 back to your grammar school.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's about time.
I did it, Miss McGillicuddy. You thought I was not going to be nothing, but I did it. But no. But anyway, let's have some parting words so we get Dr. Onieal out of here. I just want to say, I think I've already basically said, man, I appreciate it. So some parting words from Mom and David and our two guests. So let's start with Dr. Onieal first.
Well, Larry, I know personally you're going through a little bit of a tough time right now. And so there's two things I'll pass along. One is that it's going to make you tougher. It's going to make you better. You just don't know it yet. Yeah. And you're going to get to another place in another time. And you're going to be far, far more successful than you are today. And that's hard to believe, but you will be. Mm-hmm. Second thing is that I know you're not going to forget. And you're going to pay back, because if you don't pay back, you're going to get a call from me.
Don't want that.
You remember that scene from The Godfather? It was one day I will call you. Yeah. You don't want that call, Larry.
Not somebody from Jersey. No, I don't.
Right. So don't forget to pay back, okay? I know you won't.
I won't.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Mrs. Conley.
All right. Yeah. Chief Lasky.
Well, I'll finish with two things. One is the greatest leaders I've ever had the opportunity to hang with, be around, study from. I just, whether I've met them or not, you know how much I love and adore. I miss him, Colin Powell. the greatest Lee has ever been around all value family. And you just hit on that. We got your mom. I mean, that's one thing about this group, the people I hang with, all of us are where we're at because of other people. And none of us would be nowhere without family, whether it's the first family on a home or the second family on the fire service. But I'm going to steal something from Dr. Onieal, and that is, if I was saying anything to parting words to your viewers, Larry, it's not going to be who's the next Thurston, who's going to be the next Denis Onieal. And I brought that up and tried not to get emotional. The impact that man's had on my life. The pay it forward is huge. Every single one of us is where we're at today because of a whole bunch of other people. So he reached out in the audience, and that I'll never forget that. I said, "Who's the next person?" And I'm like, "Who's going to be the next Denis Onieal? Who's going to be the next one that's going to have an impact on someone else's life?" And that's why I jumped on that CSU thing. You can, you will. I did, because if I could pull it off, good God, anybody can. So who's going to be the next Denis Onieal would be my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. David?
No, I mean, obviously I have huge respect for both our guests and have had the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, understand more of Dr. Onieal's vocabulary words than Larry. So I'm happy to translate those quite often as well. And I will continue to do so. So thank you for that. But no,
topper.
What it is to inspire people is a thing that I think a lot of times, you'll be tempted to take for granted. And so what I take away from this show is just to not take that responsibility lightly. Don't take it for granted, and to make sure that you are recognizing opportunities to do that, if not, actively seeking them. And so I want to thank both of y'all for inspiring Larry, because, God knows Mama Elaine and I did what we could to get him, back in school, and to no avail. So I'm just going to say that you guys are what I might call miracle workers. But no, seriously, the inspiration is real. And it's about inspiring, the next generation, and the 2.0 and the 3.0 and what have you. And that's very necessary and very real in life, but even more so in something as serious and poignant as the fire service. So thank you both. And thank you for being our guest today. And so,
you got a few?
Well, I'm glad to when these guys are on to see where they came from and what they had to do. And they were such good examples. But the main thing is they passed on what promoted them. And they passed on for what they used. And I think that's, because a lot of people go get it and they're successful, but you can't pry how they got so successful out of them, because, it's just their thing. But I think it's really, really cool when you reach back and help somebody and be an inspiration for them. Not only help them if they come to you with a question, but just encouraging, because finding good encouragers is difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
And not challenging you to stop, because sometimes people discourage you when you want to talk about getting master's degrees and things like that. So I appreciate both of you all. And I think that's just, another thing, excuse me, that you're showing him, that now pass it on. You got yours. Now, meet some other firefighter or youngster, pass it on.
No, thank you.
And
Well,
all I want to say, the last thing is, I did the best I could.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you're still doing it, and we appreciate it. So anyway, hey, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. And go get you one. I got that meal.
There it is.
that, but I just
Start it, finish it, go get it.
go get it, go get
Yeah.
it, go
All
get
right,
it,
and I
go
like
get it.
that.
But no, seriously, thank you for tuning in, and remember, there's no competition between the two. Just continue to enhance being a great firefighter, being great wherever you are, and then each part where you are, just keep building on that. And if you do that, you'll be great wherever you land. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you to our guests for coming out. And we'll see you. We're going to have another part 2 of this with some more people that I help mentor. And we'll have them talk about their educational experience as well. So look forward to that show in the future. So anyway, thank you. Peace out. And we'll see you in the streets.
Firefighters know that every second counts during the golden hour. That is why first responders trust AMKUS for simple, rugged, reliable rescue tools.